All right, we are live. This is going to be our first Learn Biz the podcast live broadcast. And tonight we are going to chat a little bit about the entrepreneur mindset. And we want you to get into it. So, we are going to get into it tonight and talk a little bit about some of the foundational things that come to mind when it comes to entrepreneurship and going out on your own and taking a leap of faith to do something that most people are afraid to do. Start a business, be an entrepreneur. Um, so Lisa and I are going to share a couple of things with you, but I guess we should first introduce ourselves. My name is Sandy Boystron.
Um,
I'm a serial entrepreneur. And Lisa, go ahead.
I was just going to jump right in there on you. I'm Lisa K. Crawford, and I'm an entrepreneur as well.
And so we thought that in getting started with all of these episodes of our podcast, as we've listened to different stories of various people's entrepreneurial journey, different advice that people have given, at the core of everything that we've talked about is the entrepreneur mindset. And, Lisa and I have had chats about this over the years. And one of the major things for me that is clutch is understanding that being an entrepreneur is not like just having a job. And there's nothing wrong with having a job, right? It's not about having the job, it's about changing your frame of mind so that you can adjust to the challenges that are going to come because of the nature of your work as an entrepreneur, right?
Right.
What are your thoughts on that, Lisa?
I think you're absolutely right. It's not just like having a job. When you step into someone else's business, you're stepping into some component part of their operation. Whereas as an entrepreneur, you have to be mindful of all aspects of your business
Right.
and manage them all, or put the right people in place to manage certain aspects. So, an entrepreneur to me is someone who gets the big picture of that business operation, who understands it, and not just understands it, but works it or manages that.
And one thing that I constantly play in my head is the fact that, growing up, when I would hear things about, people starting businesses, entrepreneurship, it was never really something that I could grasp. Like, it wasn't something that I really understood, but little did I understand that I had entrepreneurs all around me. You got to think of your family members and the people in your life that, sold things, whatever those things may be, that made money based on the things that they created,
Right.
whether it would be something like art. Um, the folks that, would have landscaping businesses, they're entrepreneurs, right? They
Right.
started something, they're getting paid by the nature of it, they're running a business. Folks that were like handymen and um, anybody that you would know growing up that had something that they had to offer or a service that they were providing and they were making money. These were
Right.
all our examples of business ownership.
Right.
The problem is, I never really understood what it took because you only see the results or the start. You never really see the meat in between, right? You don't see the struggle. You don't see the late nights or the early mornings or, putting out the orders or providing the services. You don't see that in between. You only see, hey, I started my business and, we have an opening. Or you see the end result, which is I'm making all of this money. And this is the stuff that we see promoted.
Right.
That messes with our minds a lot because if you're just starting out, it makes you feel like you're behind. And if you're already in business and you're not attaining, the piles and piles of money that some of these entrepreneurs kind of throw out there in the social media verse, you also feel like you're behind, or you makes you second guess yourself or feel like you're not doing enough. Um, the piece of the mindset that has to be tapped into is the fact that it's not about how you started. It's not about where you're going to end up. It's about how you sustain in between those two phases. What it is that you have to do in order to balance out all of the different things that are going on. What do you think about that,
True.
Lisa?
I think you're absolutely right about that. And, and it's so important for entrepreneurs to communicate with each other or to hear each other's stories, even though we're in different professions. But a lot of the things that we have to deal with as business persons, they're similar things. Whether it's taking care of your books, your accounting, or managing employees, or marketing and promotions, there are things that we have to do. And a lot of times, like you said, Sandy, you don't hear about the horror stories. You don't hear about, the stress along the way in business.
Right.
But that's why here at LearnBiz, we like to talk about all of those challenges because it's really encouraging for
Right.
others to hear what other business persons have gone through. It's encouraging, and so it's nice to talk about what happened at the end of it all,
Right.
but it's also nice to hear how you made certain shifts or what you had to do in business to sustain yourself. I think those stories sometimes are more important.
And that's very true. And in going through this, I think there's two things that I really started to learn over the last few years. It's that to work on your business, you can't be working in your business at the same time. You have to give yourself some separation from the two tasks because as an entrepreneur, you oftentimes are an employee of the very business that you're running. And so that means that you're doing the work of the business. That is not the same as the operation of the business. So you have to kind of put yourself in two different mindsets, employee versus business owner, right?
That's true.
Worker versus entrepreneur, two different ranges. Not one is better than the other because you need both. However, if you don't have a delicate balance of both, you're going to find yourself extremely lopsided in one way or another. You're either going to be overworked and burned out and stressed out, or you're going to be disconnected from the business and lose out on, the money that you need to make and the systems that you need to build, right?
It's amazing how much of a balance is needed between those two that you just spoke about, working on the business and working in the business. That balance really does have to be there. And along the same lines, we talked about this, Sandy. Part of taking care of that business is taking care of yourself and making
Oh,
sure that I know this is one of your favorite topics because
yes,
it's something that's often left out when we talk about entrepreneurship and
right.
taking care of the business. We have to also take care of ourselves so that we can be there for that business.
And that involves a little bit of a self-care component to that mindset, right? I have to have a moment to disconnect from all of it at some point in time. But that's going to take you organizing the work that you do in your business and the work that you do on your business in a way that you can be separate from the business. Because
Hmm.
there has to come a point in time where the business can operate without you. So what
Right.
does that mean? That means I have to have systems and processes in place. I have to have workflows in place. I may have to either have some contract staff or some in-house workers. I may have to delegate and give up some of the things that I'm holding so tight and I want to do everything myself because I need to make sure that I have a moment to decompress from it all. So
Right.
I'll give you one tip from my focus as an entrepreneur is I always take moments to disconnect. And I particularly like to use things like holidays and weekends to do so. Now, obviously, we can't always take off every single holiday. It depends on the nature of your business. You might make more money during the holiday, right? You might have some more traffic. So, what you have to do is strategize about the timing and say to yourself, well, if I'm going to work through the holiday, I might need to take a couple of days before the holiday or a couple of days after the holiday. Like I have to strategize with that. But the other thing is knowing that periodically you have to put into that calendar up for yourself time off, disconnect, regroup,
Right.
refresh.
It's very, very important. And one of tip that I would give, how there's certain aspects of the business that you don't really want to tangle with. Like if you could
Right.
just bypass that accounting part, taking care of the books part.
Yes.
If you're not the person to do that, what we have to learn to do, like Sandy just said, is delegate. So I would encourage each of us to find those aspects of our business that we can just let go and give it to someone else to manage so we can actually do the parts of our business that we love working on. It may
Right.
not be every single aspect, but we have to know where to let go and where to hold on to. And so I think that's something that we all should get used to as entrepreneurs is that word delegate.
Delegate. That's going to be our word for today. Shoot,
Yes.
get into it.
Get
All right.
into it.
So this was a quickie. We just wanted to really tap in, and I think what we're going to try to do is periodically jump here on the good old YouTube and share some information about this entrepreneur mindset movement. And we hope and encourage you to take a look at our podcast, Learn Biz the podcast. We now have 11 episodes up. We're about to hit episode 12, which is the final episode of season one.
Awesome.
So take a moment, please click like, comment, subscribe. You know, share with us your thoughts on our different episodes. They're really short, maybe 10, 15, sometimes 20 minutes. So take advantage of the opportunity to learn a little bit from different entrepreneurs. We appreciate you for that.
Thank you so much. And we will be sharing some additional resources. We have what's some of the resources that we have right now, Sandy, that we can share for free?
So right now we have, I believe the entrepreneur checklist is up, if I'm not mistaken. So we're going to
Yes.
try to put that link in the bio so you can get a hold of that. And you also have just the wealth of resources from the podcast. And we have some goodies coming. We got a T-shirt coming out. We got a nice little mug and some other goodies that we're going to be putting out. So definitely stay tuned.
Thank you all so much for staying tuned to Learn Biz, the podcast.
All right.